Hello, Internet world. You're in the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about Tyler, the Creator, and his record, Don't Tap the Glass. He released that on July 21st. This is the 9th studio album for the trailblazing rapper and the follow-up to his illustrious 2024 effort, Chromakopia, which is a record that really showcases Tyler's artistic versatility and the constant evolution it undergoes with every single project he puts out. And all while clapping back at the fallout from steering his music towards a more personal narrative on the last few albums. After years of building mystique behind different personas on his early records and keeping his life as private as possible, the rapper became a bit more of an open book, but also found himself conflicted with people and their inability to recognize and respect boundaries. And all while navigating his own journey of trying to find some semblance of balance with his elevated celebrity status. That album starts immediately with the hushed lyrics of Saint Chroma, and with tracks like Noid and Thought I Was Dead, works through this great landscape that I would say puts all of the vitriolic voyeurs in their proper place while still going deeper than before and still getting introspective the way that he wants to. Don't Tap the Glass is a title that it felt like it would continue to build on this exploration, and I guess in a sense it does. Tyler's records have always focused on a concept, and this one is no different, but this one isn't really meant to be deep. This one is meant to be surface level in all the right ways, though. Opener Big Post starts by simply saying, in call and response fashion, welcome. Number 1, body movement, funky. No sitting still. Dance, bro. Number 2, only speak in glory. Yeah. Leave your baggage at home. None of that deep shit. And number 3, don't tap the glass. This record is about having fun. And it is in my opinion, a really concise exploration of hip hop over time and throughout various regions of this country, with songs that capture the spirit of the West Coast, where he makes his home, the Midwest, the South, and all the way up the East Coast, all the while benefiting from his elite production sensibility. This is his shortest full-length album to date at 10 tracks and 28 minutes. But I think that works to its benefit as well. It's concise in conveying a message that's simple and straightforward. Put the phone down, have a good time, stop worrying about your peripheral. This whole album is one feel-good groove after another, with some throwbacks that will make old and young alike look at each other and say, hell yeah. And the best part about it is that it doesn't take long to get into this half hour of bangers before you start moving so hard and you just get to a point where you say, to hell with anybody passing judgment. Forget about it. Because I think that the only motive for people that are hating is that they really just wish that they were as brave as you are in that moment. And Tyler goes on to talk about this. And he says, I quote about the record, I asked some friends why they don't dance in public, and some said because the fear of being filmed. And he says, I thought, damn, a natural form of expression and a certain connection that they have with music is now a ghost. And he goes on to say, it made me wonder how much of our human spirit got killed because of the fear of being a meme, all for having a good time. And to finish this quote, he says, this album was not made for sitting still. Dancing, driving, running, any type of movement is recommended to maybe understand the spirit of it. And then he finishes by saying, only at full volume. I love that. I love what he's trying to bring to the table after everything that has transpired. Because it sucks that we live in a day and age where the cameras are always rolling. I mean, you can just ask the former CEO of Astronomer, and I don't even bring that up to be lighthearted. Like, I don't pass judgment. I don't excuse his behavior. Like, I don't know those people, and their lives are none of my business. That is not the point of it at all. But I bring it up because I think that now when you go to a show, there are tens or even sometimes hundreds of thousands of cameras, if you're at a festival especially, of just voyeuristic shitheads that don't have anything better to do, that don't recognize that their lives are so vapid that they can't turn the camera on themselves. They're so invested in the other things that they can judge other people for. And it's so much easier to judge others than it is to look in the mirror and bring the hammer down on yourself. And I would argue that it's probably one of the biggest problems that's plagued humanity since its inception. And I think it's been grossly exacerbated with the advent of cell phone technology. I mean, George Orwell just has to absolutely be rolling over in his grave. And not only because we put the telescreens in our own pockets, but now we freely point them at strangers and call people out without any consideration for how we'd feel if the tables were turned. And I think it's just absolutely disgusting. Sorry that I'm on one, but this thing, it gets me going. And to build on that, but to bring it down a little bit of a notch, my buddy just saw Morgan Wallen up in Phoenix and said that the number of people watching the show behind their phones was unbelievable. I think this is so sad. Why do you pay hundreds of dollars to go see an artist? Because normally I would mind my business, but in this case, I paid that same amount of money for a ticket to the show with all the rest of you. And, to have all the people around me just ruin that, I'll be damned. Seriously. It's just a bunch of selfish pricks that are ruining the experience for the rest of us. To all of you that do that, just stop it. You're not famous. You're not going viral. No one gives a shit about living vicariously through your experience. And you can tell me to piss off because, that's fine. I guarantee down the road, years from now, you're going to reflect on that experience and you're going to wish that you had an amazing, vivid memory of that time that didn't involve filming it through a Snapchat segment that disappears 24 hours later. And I again, I applaud Tyler for that. I think that what he's doing here is brilliant, and it comes at the perfect moment in his life and career. A statement from a man who seems to have worked through so much of what we've just talked about now, but as a result of that can now get to the most basic fundamental aspect of life, which is enjoying it without giving a fuck what anybody thinks. There it is. I said it. This thing, it opens with Big Poe. Got this sound of an elevator bell that falls, leading to a call and response with an electronic voice giving commands and a human responding to that. Pretty sure that's Pharrell, by the way. It's brief with a big reverb vocal following and then leading into this big beat and sharp synths that are reminiscent of hip hop in the early to mid 2000s. Honestly, it makes me think of kind of that Southern hip hop scene, Lil Jon, and just the hook, Big Poe, introduces this new alter ego and features thick, fuzzy bass. So there is still a bit of a concept here. It shifts into a second verse that's more adventurous with the musical elements, with this kind of metallic percussive detail that continues to work throughout the verses and into the hook. And about the 2-minute mark, the track, it's going to hit this middle 8, and then it starts sampling Past the Cavassier Part 2 by Busta Rhymes with this great shimmering synth that almost I feel could work in nu metal or industrial style tracks. I love that there's this NERD flavor to this record. Pharrell just not being, on the first track, but I feel an influence throughout. Sugar on My Tongue is your second track. It kicks off with a big electronic beat and this kind of bouncy 80s synth that, dare I say, might sound a bit like krautrock. I love it. The song is driven by the hook, derived from the title, and then it continues to stay pretty consistent, moving between verse and chorus elements, but there's a lot of just fun, chaotic play with the instrumentation. And that's Tyler, I feel, just doing his thing from a production standpoint and having a great time. At the minute and 45-second mark, the music breaks down with a rapid fire bass drum signature, leading into this formless breakdown that features a flickering synth that kind of bubbles around turbulently with R&B style vocals. The structured synths displant the previous segment in a build back, and that finishes with the track's dominant big energy. It's definitely keeping the energy going and leading into your third track, Sucker Free, which is going to open with these twinkly synths and a driving bass element that open with vocals as well as this thing works into breezy R&B territory. Got these undulating synths. They're going to weave through peaks and valleys that I really enjoyed. And they're going to do this throughout the track. over this driving beat and a really smooth bass lick that's easy to vibe with. Like there's so much on this record that's just like easy to just kind of like bob and nod with, even if you're not the best dancer. He works into familiar Tyler territory around the minute and 40-second mark, a minimal moment where he utters rhymes with this kind of like sinister flair over nothing but a beat. I really enjoyed this moment. Get these spaced out synths that begin to work back in, returning to the track's signature energy to finish this thing off. And leading into your fourth track, Mama Nem. This thing is going to kick off with a light snare drum beat, percussive breathing, and then you get this like sharp, pinched atonal guitar. Like I love just the rock and roll influence on this thing. Tyler enters with a brief spoken word intro before he starts spitting bars. Then there's vocal elements that play in and out, and a hard industrial style crash that hits about every few bars as well. And I just love the way that the guitar works through this like cycle of high to low notes. It's just this like just this kind of like ebb and flow, these peaks and valleys that help carry this song. I like that it's somewhat minimal as well. And it leads right into your fifth track, Stop Playing With Me. The guitar that is featured in the previous track slows to a fade and then just kind of stops as the synth rises against it with this rapidly pulsating effect. There's an abrupt shift into this groovy beat that rolls hard for about 2 minutes and 15 seconds with sharp undulating synth and an increased frequency in that pulsating effect. There's this thick droning bass element that marks the chorus as the track works back and forth between those two segments. And then the beat drops around the minute and 50-second mark with just a light snare effect keeping the rhythm, and with vocals and synth that start to work back in. And then this thing finishes briefly with a slightly different tempo. I like the build back, but then the way that it just like cuts off real quick leads into your sixth song, Ring, Ring, Ring. Got this hollow, echoey synths that open with sultry, lovelorn lyrics from Tyler that like usher in this upbeat, funky 90s kind of like R&B style track. There's retro soul and a bit of disco that work as well on this one. I think it's one of the more fun, adventurous tracks. The hook is derived from the title's track, or from the track's title, excuse me. And then the second verse features a playful call and response with multiple variations in his vocal delivery and a reference to the album's title, which happens a few times over the course of this thing. The bridge keeps the minimalism of the song going with just percussion, vocals, and then that telephone ringing. And then the bass drum drives the transition to coda as those synths re-enter to bring the track back to its original feel for the coda. Into your seventh song and your title track, Don't Tap the Glass /Tweakin'. It's going to kick off with this brooding, pulsating synth and a solid piano element to match. The vocals hit with a brief percussive element and a record scratch to usher in a track that leads in with that title hook. Lots of percussive layers that lay the foundation for this really sick piano lick to just go to work throughout this thing. And then you get this intermittent droning bass as well. The intensity of the track increases before the hook with droning backing vocals. And then the song, it's going to break down about halfway through with a little trickle in the piano and the hook, and then it shifts into Tweakin'. And it kind of changes things up a little bit. You get this rapidly pulsating synth, thick droning beat, playing with variations of melodies from the first half of the track. I guess you could say it's kind of like its electronic counterpart to the jazzier first half of this track. It leads into your eighth song, Don't You Worry Baby. This one opens with vocals that have this great staccato piano and pulsating synth it's sharp and laser-like, but it still captures this mellow mood. It's almost kind of like, think of like a dull knife, I guess, is how I would describe it. Tyler drops a few bars before the beat hits, and Madison McFerrin takes over the main vocal duties on this one. Sounds great. Complemented by a droning synth. You get this great R&B feel that blends characteristics of classic pop and also jazz, and then also works in an element of retro soul that rides through from start to finish. Shifting right into your penultimate track, your ninth song, is entitled I'll Take Care of You. It's another track. It begins with this retro kind of lounge synth and indecipherable lyrics that hit real quick. And then Yeba is going to go to work with Tyler on this thing, bringing the hook in with this big soaring R&B style vocal, as the track builds momentum without percussion behind it. You get these evolving textures and this kind of slow fade in on Tyler's vocals as well. And I'd say right before about the minute and 30-second mark, the track just explodes with a beat that I feel like really dials into that Southern hip hop feel, but also working with some fun electronic breakbeat. And I feel like they've kind of gone hand in hand over the years. There's a bit of piano that trickles around while the song samples Knuck If You Buck by Crime Mob. And then this record finishes off with your 10th track, Tell Me What It Is. Hits immediately with a thick, groovy beat and a synth that sounds like trickling water. Vocal is sung in a bright R&B melody, and the eponymous hook is really good on this one. I love that it's so minimal, but it also it just sounds so full. And I think it's a big part of it is how rapturous it is. The energy is spot on for an album closer, and the track finishes the way that it starts, the entire record, I should say, with that robotic voice thanking us for enjoying this experience. I love what Tyler's doing here. I love that, aside from setting the groundwork, setting the framework for an experience that is meant to be something that seems really outside of what he's done throughout his career. It's something that is meant to be fun. It's something that is meant to inspire us to just relax and let go and enjoy life, because I feel like we live in a world where oftentimes it's just too hard to do that. A big part of the reason being the telephone, the microscope that we're constantly under. I love the way that in doing so too, that he embraces his celebrity. There's an element of his lyricism that, like he's just talking shit and having fun. And I love that. I mean, he's no stranger to that, but I feel like the overall goal of what he's doing lyrically falls right in line with the concept of the album. Leave that deep shit at home. Leave all the personal stuff out. Like, we're meant to just leave the world, in our rearview mirror and have a good time for 30 minutes. And I think this album excels in doing so. It does make me kind of wonder over time where this will stand up in comparison to his other work. But I think fans of Tyler over the years will experience these moments in their lives. And I think I can speak for myself in particular when I say this, where, like on any given Friday or Saturday night, or just maybe any night, like maybe if friends from town on vacation, or there's just some special occasion where you want to just enjoy life and smile and dance and have a good time. And I think that despite not being as deep and as introspective and as artistic as many of his previous efforts, this is a record that fans, and I think, people that are getting into his music as time goes on, will continue to look at and to go to for what it provides. Just that little bit of release, that little bit of just being able to let go. And I applaud him and this record for that reason. I'm going to give this thing a 7.6 out of 10. And I hope you enjoyed this record. Hope you find this review helpful as well. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025. And stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.